So we move on to motion 20, combating the rise of the far right. And I'm calling Lee Seedhouse to move, please.
Conference, I'm moving motion 20 because we are living through a moment where racism and authoritarianism are being normalised at a frightening pace. What we face in Britain is part of a global pattern. Across Europe, the far right is advancing. In France, Italy, Germany and the Netherlands, parties built on racism and nationalism are shaping the political agenda. In the United States, the far-right forces have dragged mainstream politics sharply to the right. In India, government has unleashed a wave of Islamophobia and repression. And across Eastern Europe, far-right parties have grown by attacking migrants, LGBTQ+ people and anyone who stands for equality. These movements feed off each other. They share strategies, rhetoric and a worldview that celebrates strongman politics. Many of them openly admire Putin, not because of geopolitics, but because they see him in the model of an authoritarian leader who crushes dissent, attacks minorities and wraps it all in nationalism. And that nationalism, the politics of flags, borders and division, is become a central organising tool. We've seen a deliberate push to turn flags into weapons, symbols used to police who belongs, who is British enough, who is allowed to speak and who is allowed to protest. Flags are being used to shut down debate, to demand loyalty tests and to push the idea that unity comes from obedience rather than solidarity. This is the terrain the far right thrives on, and Britain is not immune. The rise of reform, with its relentless scapegoating of migrants and its obsession with taking our country back, is a warning. A reformed government or even a reform-shaped political agenda would turbocharge racism, legitimise division and give confidence to every reactionary force in this country. And we don't have time to imagine that damage. We already see it in local authorities where reform-style politics have taken hold. Council slashing refugee support, equalities work stripped back, community cohesion teams dismantled, funding pulled from anti-racist initiatives, migrant families left without help, a political culture where blaming the most vulnerable becomes a default response to every crisis. Conference, this is why educators have a crucial role. Our classrooms are one of the few places where young people can learn to question, to think critically and to see through the scapegoating that dominates public life. We need to create spaces where students can talk honestly about racism, where they can challenge stereotypes, where they can learn the real history of migration, empire and resistance. We need to model solidarity, not silence. And we need to push back against attempts to turn schools into places of enforced nationalism, where flags replace critical thinking and where British values are used to shut down discussion rather than open it up. Educators know that young people are not born racist. They learn racism, and they can unlearn it, but only if we're supported, protected and empowered to do that work. And that is why Stand Up to Racism is essential. Stand Up to Racism is one of the few movements capable of mobilising at scale. We saw that last weekend, bringing together trade unionists, community groups, faith organisations, students and campaigners to push back against racism and the far right. When fascists have tried to march, Stand Up to Racism has been there. When refugees have been attacked, Stand Up to Racism has been there. When racist policies have been pushed from above, Stand Up to Racism has provided a national platform to resist. But Stand Up to Racism cannot do this alone. It needs the organised strength of our union behind it. That means districts affiliation. Affiliation gives our districts the resources and political weight to mobilise collectively, support local actions and ensure our union is present wherever the far right tries to grow. It also means individual support, because anti-racism is not something we delegate, it's something we practice. So every activist in this room has a role to play. Conference, the rise of the far right internationally, the growing politics of nationalism and flags, the dangers posed by reform-shaped agenda, and the responsibility we carry as educators all point to one conclusion. If we do not organise, they will. If we do not build unity, they will build division. If we do not strengthen our anti-racist movement, they will strengthen their racist one. Conference, accept the supportive amendments, but reject 20.6 and 20.8. I move.